All right, welcome back to the Exploring Growth podcast. So glad you're back here. Today we have a dynamic conversation with Joe Pici, who is literally the #1 sales trainer in the world, which is kind of crazy. We have an amazing conversation about the 10 reasons salespeople, owners of businesses fail at sales. I'm glad to be back. I've got Joe Pici on here. Thanks for being on, Joe.
Hey, my pleasure.
It's good to see you again. I haven't seen you in a while, and
It's been a while.
yeah, it has.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed working with you, talking with you about sales, and so I thought today would be a great day to have a good sales conversation, and
Good.
and to keep our focus on what we're talking about. I thought maybe we could just kind of dial in on missteps that you see with salespeople, and just maybe kind of have that be the basis of our conversation.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of sales reps out there that could get benefit from this, and a lot of small
Absolutely.
CEOs or owners that are still kind of selling that could get benefit, as they're growing.
Absolutely.
You are in front of a lot of salespeople and a lot of small business
Yeah.
owners that are selling themselves still. So you see a lot, right? I mean, you've probably seen it all at this point. I mean, the last time I looked, you were were you #1 or #2 in the world?
Well, in the last 5 years, I've gone anywhere from #1 to #4
Yeah.
and back and forth. But the best part is our sales training program, our boot camp for 3 straight years. We're waiting for the tally on the 4th year, has been the #1 sales training workshop in the world by Global
I believe it.
Gurus.
I believe it because
And so we get anything from entry-level salespeople to 37-year
Yep.
vets to CEOs of big companies to small companies. A lot of different people come to that training.
I believe it because I took the training and I got immense value from it. And it wasn't just the sales training. There was a lot of contextualized stuff about behavior and decision making.
Yeah.
And I could see I have
Exactly.
a big background, many almost a decade in sales, and so speaking to the nature of your training as a kind of quasi sales veteran, coming through that training was it was like clarity again. I got more clarity as to, okay, messaging, here's my audience, and I can say the right words, in front of the right people the right way. And it takes a lot of pressure
Right.
off of me as a salesperson. I can get back to the fundamentals. So yeah, I completely agree. And anybody that hasn't looked at your course, we'll link all that below so they can take a look at that. But let's talk about missteps that salespeople make. What comes up to mind when you think of that?
Well, there's a lot of them, but let me give you a few. #1, they never really master the skills. They mistake marketing with
Yes.
sales, right? And marketing to me, and the Joeism, is what you do externally to drive leads to you. That's the outside funnel. But sales is when you take those leads, however you generate them, and you want to have a conversation with the decision maker.
For
So
sure.
and there's a lot of great sales trainers out there. They're magnificent. The majority of them work more in motivation and strategy. And what we've learned is that if we don't equip people with the skills, how to pick up that phone, book an appointment, how to do a consultative sales meeting, how to read communication styles, how to negotiate. So I think the first misstep that sales professionals make is they mistake marketing with sales. The second is they don't spend enough time at mastering the fundamental skills.
Yeah. You know what? That's right on point. I see that all the time too. And the way I would say it is, I think a lot of salespeople, they view it as a job and not a craft. And those
Right.
salespeople that actually want to get better as a practitioner of what they do, like, anybody else that really takes their craft seriously, those are the
Yeah.
people who will eventually fully understand the fundamentals and implement them on a daily basis. They will build a skill set that they can't help but deploy. And it will be not only in their sales role, but it'll be in their personal life as well. I know you've seen that too.
Right. But it's funny because salespeople, a lot of them, they take a Dale Carnegie class, and then for 20 years they think I'm okay. Yet doctors, lawyers, realtor, they have ongoing
Right.
training. And so, sales, and I don't really believe that people should sell or train sales out of charisma and talent because there's not a lot of people with
Hmm.
that. So we believe more in
Yes.
processing, messaging, and skills. And if those are quantifiable and those are teachable and learnable, then anyone can learn to sell if they want to sell.
100%. One thing that I saw with you that I think is very different than the training I've gotten in the past, is that it's hyper practical. It's not just
Mhm.
theory, but it's the actual practice. It's like, okay, we're actually going to pick up the phone and say words. And I think
Well,
there's a
yeah.
lot of merit to that. Especially today. You know, um, the rubber is not fully on the road with a lot of people.
Well, I don't believe in role play. I believe in real
Yeah.
play. The number one hardest thing for a sales professional business owner to do is to take a prospect lead. We have 20 ways we generate leads, but to take a lead, then pick up the phone. And if it's B2B, navigate the gatekeeper, get to the right person. Or if it's B2C, what do they say? And you really can't teach that in
Mhm.
theory. And that's why in all of our sales training, a
Mhm.
component is live outbound telephone call training, which is one of our uniquenesses,
Yes.
which is, it doesn't make us better or worse, but it does have a uniqueness to it. And I mean, in our 3 day sales boot camp, we allow 26 people. We'll have 18 different industries
Yeah.
represented. Okay. We'll have entry level to 37 years in the industry. But on day 3, we're going to make 90 minutes to 2 hours of
Mhm.
outbound calls. We've never done less than 72% conversion to appointment. We navigate 90% of the gatekeepers and we get same day return
Mhm.
phone calls because that is a major focus of what we do.
And it shows that process, having a system of which you work by, is paramount. Something
Yeah.
I'm interested to kind of hear your response, rebuttal, philosophically here, is that I think a lot of people would say the phone is dead, right? I mean, I know where you stand on this because I've been, in the conversations, but it's really hard to get, especially a younger sales force. I'm going into these companies, working with some of these salespeople. It's hard to get
I
them
know
to
you are.
think about the even remotely the concept of picking up a phone. They think, well, why would we do that? No one's going to answer the phone. And so, I mean, what's your take on that? If I were that person, how would you convince me that
Well, number one, when I go into a company and I'm working with their
Mhm.
sales team, I have to get
Yeah.
buy-in. So you get buy-in, number one, by giving statistical
Hmm.
data. Since the era of cybersecurity, do you know there's a lot of companies that do not allow their people to open up an unsolicited
Right.
email? So one of the largest email marketing companies in the entire country, if you really put their feet to the fire, they say a cold email has about a 4% open
Hmm.
rate. Now, if you're going to have the initial outreach, we do much better than 4%. The second thing is people are misusing LinkedIn. They're now using LinkedIn like email marketing, and people are getting tired of it. They're getting these long, convoluted messages to which they don't even read. So we have a process by which we use LinkedIn. 91% of our business is now coming from LinkedIn leads.
Hmm.
But I get I get on the phone right away. And so I would go head to head with any marketing approach and use the phone as an initial outreach. I just worked with 26 Aflac agents here in town in Orlando. The majority of them had never made outbound cold calls. They're calling into a cold market. Now, all these calls that we train are not just cold. It's warm,
Sure.
cold, and hot. But they're working in a cold market. These are people that hadn't done it before. All they did was bring in
Hmm.
lists. They had no idea who they were
Hmm.
calling with cell phones and calendars. And in the course of an hour and a half, We had about a 72% conversion to appointment. We literally got through 92% of the gatekeepers. And in the afternoon, the phone started ringing. And they said, well, why does this work? Because this thing of the phone is dead, the phone is not
Mhm.
dead. You may get a no answer, but what is it that you do? What is the message you
Mhm.
leave?
That's right.
Okay. Everything we do is highly
That's right.
scripted. And, CEOs will say, my people don't like scripts. And then I kind of laugh and I go, well, the best actors in the world use
Yeah.
scripts, right? Pacino, Brando, they're
Oh
all
yeah.
Italian. And only they know their scripts so well. So I don't argue with people, but proof positive when we're in the training room, we get resounding results using the
I
phone.
cannot think of a more challenging scenario than the one you gave. An Aflac agent that hasn't done it before, cold calling someone with a product that is ubiquitous. That's a very challenging scenario. To get those conversion rates is pretty awesome. And the way so we're aligned in this thinking. As a marketer, primarily the way I think about it is I've always been this way, is I am channel agnostic, or tool agnostic. So I don't ever say that anything is dead. And the reason
Right.
why is because it all depends on several factors that go into how you use it. So, for example, I play in the B2B space primarily. So B2B is different than B2C. It's different than B2C, right? So you
Absolutely.
have so many different scenarios in which a channel or tactic or tool can be utilized. If it's put in the
Sure.
hands of someone who is a practitioner and understands that
Right.
tool, like a carpenter with a nail gun, let's say,
Right.
they know all
Sure.
the ways it works, how it works, then you can be so much more effective. So direct mail is not dead. Signs on the side of a
Uh-uh.
bus are not dead. And what I hear you saying is, assuming that is all true, it comes back to messaging. So
Right. It's
when
all
you
about
pick up the
messaging.
phone,
Yeah.
what you say, because they picked up the phone. Well, now the phone is not dead so far. Now we're going to say words. That's going to dictate your conversion rate. So the words you say are the most important part, and that plays through with marketing as well.
Well, I not only do I work with outbound, I work with a lot of companies, and I have a very big B2C market and a very big B2B
Mm-hmm.
market. And our B2B market is anything from small,
Yeah,
medium, and large. And the reason why I don't target an industry or size is because our niche is what we do, not who we
that's
do it
right.
for.
It's process
But
driven.
I also work with companies that are getting the inbound
Mm-hmm.
calls. And how do you take that inbound call and have the right messaging to now flip it to an outbound approach? That's vitally
Yes.
important. Okay. And you said the most important word. You said
Yes.
practicing. The majority of people in sales, outside sales, where they have to go get it, 92% of those quit in 18 months. All right. Why is there such a high failure in business today? We're in a 92% failure rate in startup
Mm-hmm.
businesses. There's only one reason why you go out of business. There's only one reason why you quit sales, because you don't get enough clients, right? And once you master client
Mm-hmm.
acquisition, then the
That's
game
right.
is over,
I've heard.
which goes back to the number three reason why people
Yes.
fail. Are you ready
Yes.
for it?
Hit me with it.
They don't count the cost of what it takes to be successful in that particular
Yes.
business. They get in for the sizzle and not the steak. They don't spend time with people that have done it long enough. Like if I was going into what you
Mm-hmm.
did, I would pay you to coach me for a
Mm-hmm.
couple days to see if I was willing to do what you do to be
For
successful.
sure. But
Right?
you
So,
only would do that because you have the wisdom now to know that that's what you have to do to be successful. Is you need to know, will you commit? But if they don't have that wisdom, a lot of people don't, that get into it, they get into it for all the wrong reasons. And therefore it becomes a job. And that job is measured in ill ways, by themselves and sometimes their manager. because I think that's another misstep too, is managers and how they're, leading their salespeople. Maybe you want to say a few words about that,
Well,
because I know you've seen a
there's
lot of that.
leaders. Oh, there's leaders and managers. And what happens in companies all the time, they take a producer and they go, you are now going to be the sales manager. Now, the minute they become the sales manager, usually their income
Yes.
drops because they're not getting the commissions they
Yeah.
were getting. They'll get some override. Number two, they weren't trained in management, they weren't trained in training, and they weren't trained in leadership, but they're good people. And all of a sudden, they look at how they've done things and they go, what's their problem?
Yep.
Right? And it goes really more to a personality approach rather. I mean, Chet Holmes, who was the probably best sales strategist out there at many years ago, and he passed away years ago, but his
I know Chet Holmes.
information's still
I know him well. Actually, back in my sales days, I would stay up at night studying his PowerPoints and everything. They were amazing.
Yeah, it was great. He said the worst way you can train a person is to take a new person and put him with a veteran and let the new person mirror the veteran. And that is the lowest form of training.
Yep.
Okay. So really, I'm a big advocate, and not because I have a training company, but I don't think you can train enough.
Sure.
Okay. When it comes to sales, communications, messaging, and the thing that I like about what we do is our training always pays for itself because they write business right away. And so I it's almost like, it didn't cost them anything. But that's why when we opened up this company, we decided we would only train, speak, and coach and consult on what we do every day in our own business to grow our business.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. What you're doing, you're teaching. I'm a big fan of that. Also, because obviously I have my consulting side, and then I have Signal Media, which is the content agency. So, part of the reason why I pull my hair out to have that side of it is because I like to be close to the front lines and see what's happening and have my hands actually in the work. Because if I'm going to come over here and give advice on what to do purely, and that's what they're paying me for, I need it to be rooted in something that is actually true. Right. So, I'm a big fan of people who are giving advice based on what they know to be true, first person, versus it being, I read a blog and, it may or may not be true.
One of the things I get all the time from potential clients is, well, Joe, we had someone in here before and we really never got what we were looking for. And then I ask them this question: how did you vet them?
Yeah.
I mean, I tell clients, you can call 100% of my clients, and any of them that tell you they didn't get what they were looking for, then don't hire me. I mean, I'm looking at my whiteboard back there. That's 3 months of proposals. Awesome. Just 3 months.
That's also very old school, by the way.
Well, it is.
I love it.
This is my
look, I gotta look at my whiteboard. This is 4x8 right here.
November, December, and January. Okay, I've got 135 formal proposals out. Now, I don't say that to brag. I'm only saying that I can't teach something that I'm not consistently doing. Yeah. And so sales and marketing is so predicated on, is the person who's coming in to do the consulting, are they white hot in the now of what's going on?
So that, talking about the whiteboard being old school, it brings me to something else that came to mind when we're planning this talk. And that is something I see a lot, because from the marketing side, we need to interact and be in alignment with the sales team. Like, so if you have a marketing and sales team that are trying to work together, marketing producing inbound leads, sales following it up, there's other dynamics that are happening. One critical tool is a CRM, something that allows them all to, be on the same page. And what I always see happening is, and I get it to some extent, but again, it comes back to process. I see that sales, they don't live in their CRM. They don't live in the, like, that's your CRM right there on the board, right?
No, that's just no, that is my now, but we have a
Sure.
CRM that everything goes into,
Right.
okay? Yeah, all the
All the note.
information, we send out
Yeah.
campaigns. We look at our CRM as support to our sales and a component of
Of
marketing.
course. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So that's one misstep that I see, that is such a simple thing. But again, if you were treating sales as your craft, you would you would come to the realization that a CRM is like your lifeblood, because how do you keep it all up here? You don't. How do you keep it all in your notebook? You don't. It needs to be synthesized and dynamic and leveraged, all these conversations. And so, if you're a salesperson listening to this right now, you need to get in your CRM and get that thing cleaned up, and tag all of your segmented, tag everybody, and get on a rhythm of you utilizing that CRM on a daily basis, because you will be so
Right.
glad that you did, because all your follow up tasks
Well,
behind that.
I feel bad for people like you. I'll tell you why. You are so good with driving leads to a
Yeah,
company. I mean, but let me give you the statistic. 93% of inbound leads never get
I
followed
know,
up
it's
on.
so
But who
sad.
do they blame? They blame the
Oh yeah,
marketing company. When it's their
yeah.
sales team that is not doing the job. You know, I work a lot in the rent to own franchise
Hmm.
industry. I work with them on sales, I work with them on collections, and response time on the leads they get, you better get
Yep.
to it. You got a nanosecond. We're living in a time where if people fill something out or if they want information, you better have somebody on it right now or they'll go to the
Yeah.
next company. And so you can do the greatest job in the world. But if that sales team is not urgent about taking
Yeah.
those leads and making that call and booking that appointment and starting the sales
Hmm.
process, normally the person who hired you is going, what's the
Yeah.
problem? Our income hasn't gone up. Well, the income hasn't gone up because your sales team, and you can't really say this, but I can. See, as a
Oh no,
sales
I
team,
can say
for
it.
what
I
I
can say it,
do,
and I do
yeah,
say it.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, but it's sort of it's something I have to communicate on the front end whenever we start campaigns, because I want them to know where this ends, and where it ends is a qualified opportunity that can be fumbled by your
right.
people. So, are we going to address that first and then run the campaign, or are we going to run the campaign and then when we get good qualified leads that come in, are we going to address it then? It's got to be addressed.
Right. Quick and again, we here at Peachy and Peachy, you said, I was ranked number one. We compete with sales training companies that have thousands of people out there in the
Yeah.
field training, right? Well, Peachy and Peachy is Peachy and
Yeah.
Peachy. I can tell you that a lot of the way we land big contracts and small contracts in
Hmm.
B2C is that I get a lead, I make the call
Yep.
right now. I mean, everything, if I'm not in a training room, I'm not doing coaching, I'm not on a
Yeah.
podcast, I'm in real time sales.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I beat my competitors to the punch.
So then I guess what you're saying is, or what I'm hearing you say is, that it's a mindset before you even get to it being a craft and following a predetermined system or process. It's a mindset, because what does it take for someone to have that knee jerk reaction to a lead coming in? I mean, you run your own business, so a lot of good successful business owners are always paranoid, and I think that's a good quality, because we know we can be put out of business. You're in control of your own destiny because you understand how to sell, but you also have to be driven enough or motivated enough to respond quickly and not think that they're going to call you back or not call a competitor
They're
or
not
not
calling
forget
you.
about you all completely.
No, they fill out a form or they look at your marketing and they go, yeah, and they do whatever
Yeah.
your call to action is. They're expecting a
Mm-hmm.
response. With me, if I don't get a response, I don't trust
Mm-hmm.
that company. So this brings me to a fourth
Okay.
reason of why businesses fail, whether it's because of their sales staff or
Mm-hmm.
themselves, it's just a lack of accountability in the marketplace. People are afraid to hold themselves and or their sales team accountable because they're afraid they'll
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
Okay. And so tolerate they tolerate people being slow to respond.
Yep. Hmm.
All right. And working with a client, a trucking company in Lakeland, and I was coaching them, and I was saying, how many leads do you have that are more than 24 hours old? And none of them would
Yeah.
answer me.
They don't want to
And I
tell you.
said,
They
and
all
I would
are.
say, I'd
Yeah.
fire all of you. You mean to tell me your boss is writing a check to some marketing
Hmm.
company? They're driving leads
Hmm.
to you. And so here's number 5. You wanted the 5th reason why salespeople fail, business owners fail. The least amount of what they do in their day is
Hmm.
sales.
It's not prioritized.
If you were to sit down and look at what a salesperson does, what they have to do to sell usually gets 10 to 15% of their day.
Hmm.
All right. I was working with a client from California, and I did some training, and then the CEO calls me, says, this has to be confidential. I won't mention them name because
Yeah.
it's confidential. I said, okay, great. She said, well, we're not getting the volume. I said, okay, give me the responsibilities you have with your salespeople. What are you asking them to do? And the single most important thing they were supposed to do was take an inbound lead and
Hmm.
call them. And based on the amount of volume that was being done, I said, your sales team is working an hour and a half a
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
And she goes, how can you figure out? I said, you got the
Yeah.
software. What else are they doing?
Yeah.
She said, what would you do? I said, well, I'd ask them that
Yeah.
first. And then I would create time blocking. From this time to this time, you're making calls. From this time to this time, you're
Hmm.
making calls. Now, they wanted everything put in the CRM, which
Hmm.
was great. After your call back, do your recording. So do all your calls first, take all your notes, and then stick them in your
Yep.
CRM. And so it's prep time is so important in sales.
Yes.
Okay. And having a solid I don't have to think
Exactly
about
right.
it. I can get a proposal out in 5 to 7 minutes because I have everything on a
Hmm.
template on Word documents that all I have to do is take what I have as what's called a core story or my sales interview, take what it is they want to improve, take what they want to accomplish, determine timeline, and I can literally take what came out of their own mouth and put it on a
Hmm.
proposal. So from a time efficiency standpoint, I can be in real time. So when I'm doing my call block, the only uh, social media platform that's open is
Hmm.
LinkedIn because that's where my target
Right.
market is. And I have the kind where if somebody views my profile, I
That's right.
know it. They immediately go on my
Yep.
next call. So I'm not surfing and I'm not writing
Hmm.
comments. It's a real-time lead source
Hmm.
for me that goes right into my
Yeah.
calls. So I don't know if
No,
I'm answering your
you're
questions.
setting it up. I mean, there's so much to talk about here, and I'm having all these things pop in my brain as you're talking. It's like a synthesis of, I could even make it even more macro. Like when you have a lot of companies lack vision, but this vision, let's say you was in tune with everyone and everyone's on board. This is the true north of where we're headed. Well, that's going to dictate messaging. And
Right.
if you've got the messaging and you're really everyone's behind what it is that you're doing, how you affect your buyer and the value you bring, you build this effective process, a system of selling and marketing around the messaging as a vehicle to take it to your buyers.
Right.
And
Right.
you are become a practitioner of your craft so that you can utilize these tools properly and most effectively, and therefore managing your time effectively. You're going to have success that's abounding compared to how you're operating right now. So there's so many different
Yeah.
components that have to be synthesized, I think, but by starting with um, being critical about what you're doing, auditing what you're doing, and and thinking critically about what's working and what's not working, you're going to start to derive all of these things. And if you
Right.
really do want this to be a more of a craft than a job, something that's fulfilling, not only the dollar signs at the end of the month, which is a big
Right.
thing for salespeople, and some people are wired that way. That's fine.
That's how they
But
keep
if you
score.
want to have a better score and you want to win more
Right.
games, then you got to get better at run the ball down the field.
Well, yeah, and you gave me my number
Okay.
6. You ready for number
I've
6?
got one too. I'm going to hold on to it when you're finished. There's so many of them.
They lack a system of priority and time
Yes.
management. We have a priority and time management system by which we always prioritize top down. And so what happens is there's a lot of good people out there, and they mean well.
Sure.
Not every person is lazy.
Yeah, sure.
Got it? But they don't manage their priorities in time, so the day gets away from them. Then the week gets away from them. All right? And before you know it, you know, they're looking at their business and they're going, you know, we haven't generated a good lead this week, and I haven't really had any sales meetings, but it got away from them. Instead of every morning, their priority and time management should have been
That's right.
designed.
So
What
so
was
not
yours?
the same, but similar, semantics here. We were talking about this in just a few minutes ago. It came to mind in that the timing of when someone is ready to buy is everything for B2B. And that's both sales and marketing. So marketing's job is to build credibility and influence that timing as much as they possibly can. Sales' job is to derive the timing and jump on the opportunity that's in front of them to close them and close them in a valuable way, meaning you're bringing more value to them being closed and operating with you than them continuing to search and not solve that problem. And so, on the marketing side, it's a conversation, because it's about how do we first of all get attention and bring awareness to what we're doing, so that we can then nurture that attention and influence the timing of their decision, because sometimes that decision can be pushed up a little bit. But on the sales side, back to your, I get a lead, I call them. This is where, again, utilizing the tools that are the most effective matter, because if you understand that timing is everything, even if you're not in a business that requires an immediate callback, and you approach it that way, the outcome is going to be dramatically different.
Well, 80% of the people you reach out to the first time, whether it's an inbound lead, whether it's an outbound, it doesn't matter, are not ready right now. 86% of all sales happens between the 6th and the 15th contact. My lowest closing ratio is when people call me.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that's just the way it is. So I don't treat anybody different, and I don't try to figure them out. I just have a policy that everything is in real time, and that I'm going to do what I can do, which is when I get a contact, no matter how I get that lead, I'm going to make my initial outreach. I want to get that initial, what I call a core story. And for us, a core story is the initial sales meeting where they're doing 80% of the talking, okay, which starts the ball. I mean, it took me 10 years to get Blue Cross and Blue Shield. It took me 10 years to get NAI Real Best. Okay. I don't chase them, but I stay in touch with them. But I didn't wait on them. I did a lot of business in between. But if you have a solid process, you stick to the process no matter what happens.
That's right. So I think we've got a total of about 7, maybe 8 in the hopper. And that's far exceeded my expectations, but I know that there's so much more to talk about. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I love that it's punchy and, quick. Someone can re-listen to this multiple times and get a ton of value out of it. So much appreciate that. What I am working on, and I've been kind of tossing this idea around from the beginning of when I launched my podcast last year. I've had on, obviously marketers and salespeople. What I want to do is I want to put together a panel where we have maybe a total of 3 or 4 or 5 voices, all in the B2B marketing sales alignment conversation. And I want to have that discussion about what does marketing sales alignment look like today, 2023. So I want to invite you on that panel. So I think
Sure, I'd love
that'd be
to
a lot
do
of fun.
that. It is. I will say this for the entrepreneurs out there, for the sales professionals, there's never been a better time for this reason. If you have an expertise, if you have great mastery over your craft, if you are
Mm-hmm.
ambitious, if you're self disciplined, that's going to beat 90% of the competitors.
True.
Okay. A lot of people get into sales or open up their own business for the wrong
Mm-hmm.
reasons. They think they have all this flexibility where if you're in sales or you own your own business, you're going to work your
Yeah.
butt off. Right. And so it's not somewhere where you can go hide and just say, hey, I'm just going to go to work at 9 a.m. and be done by 4 and go to
Yeah.
the gym, because it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't at all. It's 24/7 grind. And you have to really love what it is that you're doing, because at the end of the day, you know, a lot is going to go wrong, and you got to be able to stick in there. You
Yeah.
know, kind of maybe like a different take on that is that knowing how to sell, and even if it's not your craft, it's not your profession, but understanding the mechanics of selling can change your life. I mean, it can change your life personally, with your relationships, understand how to ask for the right questions and qualify what people are saying, so communication gets clearer. Um, it is life changing on the personal side, but also on the business side. If you start a business
Sure.
and you know how to pick up the phone or send an email and say the right thing that matters, and of course timing being part of the conversation too, you're going to have far more success than, and it allows you to enjoy what it is that you wanted to do in the business even more,
Right.
because it takes that
Sure.
burden of not having new cash coming in the door off of your shoulders. And that's why I think a lot of small businesses fail.
How about number 9?
Let's do it. If we stick here long enough, we might end up with
I,
10 or 20.
I think number 9 is that business owners, sales managers, don't know how to hire the right salesperson when it's time to
Mm-hmm.
hire them, and they make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes. Okay. By making mistakes, a couple things happen. You don't get a return on investment, but also you're turning someone loose that is the frontline message to a potential client, and they can destroy your
Mm-hmm.
brand.
For sure.
And so when you're hiring a salesperson, here's what I would hire. I would hire ambition, self-discipline, honesty, and I would train them on the skills and
Mm-hmm.
strategies. Okay. But I see people and they hire a salesperson that's been in sales their whole
Mm-hmm.
life and turn them loose. And they're out there and they're doing whatever they want to do, saying whatever they want to say. And before you know it, feedback is coming to the home office that this person wasn't forthright, their messaging wasn't right, and now you've got a mess to clean up. Remember, the salesperson takes the leads from a marketing company, but they are the live version of your
Yes.
business. And so I would just be really careful when you're hiring a salesperson. When it's time, make sure you hire the right
Okay.
one.
So now that you've brought this idea in my head, we've got to talk about this before we get off of here. So I was talking with a client the other day, and they have trouble with their salespeople. Um, and it's a difficult. I won't get into the actual industry, but like we can maybe talk about this offline. But I just want to kind of get the concept there and get your feedback. So the industry is a very difficult one. It's not necessarily one that is sales traditionally has what you would think of as a sales rep. It's more of a business development network kind of thing. It's all kind of relationship based. They're hired typically by having kind of their good old boy network, in the area. So they go to them and get the leads. And my client's saying, I don't want salespeople anymore, because kind of what you're saying, like they go out there and they don't really do much. But the other part of it is they're sick of paying these 40% commissions on the front end when what do they really do? You know what I mean? So we're having this conversation, and we're looking forward, not only their business model, but like, how things are changing in the landscape of their business, but we're looking forward of what what does selling look like in the future. And I know you've worked with a lot, I've seen it firsthand. You work with a lot of people who are introverts, people who don't know how to sell, have never sold. They're scared to death of talking to other people or picking up the phone, and they win, right? So this brings me to my thing, the thing that I'm pondering right now, and actually having active conversations about it. If a business can build a stellar back end where the customer service part of it is just on point. In addition to that, their product market fit is on point. The service that they're offering people want. Maybe there's a really difficult. Maybe it's not a really sexy product, so people aren't always looking for it. And for people to change from what they're currently doing is a big lift, right? And there's not a lot of value to get them to change, but when they do, they love being there because of the customer service and the back end, personal, all this. So we are talking about this, and I'm thinking, okay, well, what if we cut out the salespeople and we train your sort of back end customer service team that are taking care of all your good clients, train them on how to sell, and basically cut out the salespeople and connect the buyer, the new prospective buyers, with trained customer service people, but they know how to sell, essentially, because there's not a lot of selling really that has to happen in these transactions. It's more of the outreach, it's more of like connecting with new people and exposing them to what they're doing that's so different and so good. So, maybe off the cuff, I don't want to put you on the spot, but like,
You
I
can put
would
me on
love
the
to hear
spot.
your thought about that.
There's nothing wrong with that for this reason. I train a lot of companies that have sales reps and then account managers. Well, the account managers are the back end.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
And when I finally get through to the owner to let me train both of them, the account managers wind up outselling the salespeople.
Right. Yeah.
You understand? But they still need messaging.
That's right.
They need skills. They need to know communication styles. Okay. And they need to know how to cross sell and upsell and take an existing client and offer other features. Sure. And so it's still the same process, only you're just shifting the hand. Okay. Look, I just worked with a new client. I can't mention their name, but they're very much in the education space. And they've hired all ex-school teachers that are all slow-paced, people-oriented, shy, reserved people that don't even like the word sales. And when I got done training them, they called the owner and said, we just can't wait for tomorrow to get on the phone again. Because their whole perception of what selling is totally different now. And now they know they're offering a solution. They're solving a problem. They're not selling a widget. And that's the difference between transactional sales and consultative. Completely. Transactionals get to yes or no as quickly as possible. Consultative is building rapport, solving a problem, offering a solution, defining the desired result, establishing a timeline, and then continuously, consultatively following up. And then when they're ready, they buy. Did I answer your question?
You did. And I think to an extent you did, but I think connecting the dots on how to reform the thinking inside of an organization like that is what I'm looking for, is how do you take the account managers who naturally are good at taking care of people and they know the product inside and out, and turn them into salespeople that can then be in alignment with the marketing efforts that, if done effectively, present the conversations. And even if they reach out cold and start those conversations, there's an overlap that's happening there.
Well, somebody has to bring the leads to the table. So if it's not going to be the old sales team, then you have to equip
Correct.
these people to be able to take one of your leads, make that initial reach. So it's just a matter of saying, okay, we're going to add a dimension to their position.
That's right.
They'll get an extra commission from it, but they're still going to have to be trained and coached on outbound sales, because now you've added something to them where they never had to go after it get it. Now they do.
Right. It's an interesting proposition, I think, because knowing this business, the industry that it's in, it really could change a lot of how valuable certain types of those businesses can be in the marketplace, because they're kind of ubiquitous.
Absolutely.
And like, how are you different than your competitor? So it's a very interesting nut to crack. And I think we're real close there. So, but
well, before you start to wrap this, can I give a free gift out? All right. If everyone would take out their cell phone, go into the text box where the message needs to be Sales Edge, SALESEDGE. Some iPhones will break it up. You put quotes around, it's got to be one word. Text that to 55678. That's going to take you to a Pici and Pici link. Hit the link. It's going to take you to a splash page. There is a free webinar, The 9 Essentials of Sales Success. You'll just need to put your email in there. Enjoy it. It is a masterclass on the 9.
They probably aren't the same 9 that we just got done talking about. I can tell you that.
No, not at all. No, they're not at all. Now, also, if any of you want to ever have a complimentary cup of Joe, then call me at 407-947-2590. Make sure we connect on LinkedIn, and then they can put my 2 websites, Pici and Pici Inc. and sellmorevirtually.com, on the show notes.
And I can guarantee you with 100% accuracy that Joe will pick up your phone call. And if he doesn't, you'll get a phone call probably within 5 minutes. He's like the phone. He's like an AI assisted phone operator. It's like the phone is part of his identity. Like that's, I mean, that's how good you are. But yes, we'll link all of that stuff below. And I would 100% say, go watch the free webinar through the text link, because you'll get a ton of value out of it. And I would additionally say, from personal experience, of course, this wasn't meant to be a pitch for your, what you do, but I'm fine with it because I got a lot of value from it myself when I went through your course. I was apprehensive because at that stage, my mind was all tangled up as to what is it that I'm doing with my business. So I'm an overthinker. I think a lot. I think too much. I don't know if you remember that part, but I think.
Yes, I do. I remember.
I think too much. So that was really the problem. Is I just needed to get out of my head and do some things, and that's what your course allowed me to just have some clarity. But in anticipation of the course, I thought, do I really need this? I mean, I've been selling for 10 years and I know I've read all the books. I've listened to all the Chet Holmes stuff. I've been through formal corporate training classes for weeks on end. Like, I have all the sales stuff. I've done it. I've succeeded. Why do I need to go spend more money and do this? And so finally, I was just at a point of, I need some more external feedback. And I was so thankful that I did it, because it just helped me to break down that barrier that was in my mind and just, steam full ahead into, okay, my messaging is back. I know what it is that I'm saying. I can get on the phone and make phone calls. I can send emails. I can LinkedIn. I can do all the things that I need to do. And when I'm talking to people in person too, it's not just the phone. When I'm talking to people, I have.
Oh yeah, that's only 90 minutes of the training. Okay, the live calls. The rest is all the infrastructure on the whole process of selling. And by the way, we do the 3-day sales boot camp every April and every
Hmm.
October. If you want any information on that, just reach
Yep.
out to me. We also, something else that I always like to say on a podcast, one of the biggest verticals we have, we work with speakers, coaches,
Hmm.
trainers, and consultants that either want to full-time or part-time monetize their talent and intellectual
Hmm.
property. We teach them the back end of how to have a very solid consulting, speaking, training business. And we've helped people get into six figures in less than a year.
Speaking in their domain.
Training, coaching, speaking,
Yep.
whatever, anybody that helps other companies, helps other people, whether it's from the big stage, a training room, or consulting, we help them package all that up in a way, take it to
Yep.
market, build out their business model. It's an incredible
Yeah, that's
product.
awesome. Again, you just sharing the knowledge of the things that you've done.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah,
all we
I
do.
love it. This has been awesome, and I can't wait to release this so everybody can get so much value from this conversation. And we'll chop this up a million different ways too, so people can consume it on different social media. But I'm going to have you back. I'm getting my panel together. Whenever I get everybody together, both marketers and salespeople, we're going to do that, and it's going to be really good. I'm excited to have you on that.
It'd be my honor.
All right, let's get back to work. All right, thank you so much for listening to this episode. It was so much fun talking to Joe, and I hope you got a ton of value out of this conversation and some of the other podcast episodes you've been listening to. And if so, would you please go over to wherever you're listening to this podcast, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you're finding this, and either subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and leave a rating or review. And even more so, hit me up on LinkedIn, leave a comment, and let me know, like, what are you enjoying about hearing this podcast? Because we want to do more of what you guys are liking. Anyways, we'll see you on the next episode.